She was betrayed by love and destroyed by silence. But when the truth finally clawed its way out of the shadows, Emily didn't just get justice, she became it. My name is Emily. I am 32 years old, and the night of my birthday. Dinner at the Ivory Room was the night the world thought I would shatter. But they didn't know that I had already broken 6 weeks before. That I had already gathered the shards and forged them into something sharper, something stronger. The Ivory Room was a cathedral of culinary elegance, all white linen and crystal, with a string quartet in the corner playing some pretentious classical tune. My friends, family, and colleagues were gathered around the long, polished mahogany table, candles casting soft light over a celebration I no longer cared about. At the head of the table, I sat in a red silk dress chosen for confidence, not comfort, watching a play unfold. But this was not their play. I wrote the script. Lauren stood next to my husband Mark, her hand poised in theatrical glory over the gentle rise of her stomach. Mark's hand rested on her shoulder like a brand, like possession, like victory. She wore the smirk of someone convinced of her power, a look honed since childhood. I knew it well. I saw it every time she got what I had to work for. "We're a family now," she said, triumph dripping from her tongue like poison. Mark mirrored her expression, his features arranged into that fake pity face he had practiced so long it became second nature. The table fell into stunned silence. Glasses paused halfway to lips, cheeks flushed with second-hand shame. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. Instead, I raised my glass. To family, I said. They didn't know the war was already over. I had already won. 6 weeks before, I found the email. I had picked up the shared family iPad looking for a risotto recipe. Mark never remembered to sign out. The subject line: our plan. My sister's name. My husband's inbox. The screen glowed like a warning flare. I clicked. Of course I clicked. Every ugly detail spilled out in sterile Arial font. How long, where, what they said about me. The final paragraph sealed it. They would announce the pregnancy at my birthday dinner. They wanted to use the moment to break me, to catch me in public humiliation, to push me into a quiet divorce. Lauren had typed the words that turned me from heartbroken to something else entirely. She never fights back. I dropped the iPad. The screen cracked. Just like me. That night, locked in the bathroom, I let out a single, silent scream. No tears, no rage. Just a breath so empty it felt like death. Then I hardened. I froze the pain and sharpened it into a weapon. I called Jessica. "Jess, it happened." She knew. She always knew. "Where are you?" she asked, panic in her voice. "At home. But I'm not going to cry. I'm going to burn it all down." It began with Mark's lie about the fertility test, the cornerstone of our crumbling marriage. We had tried to have a baby for years. After endless pleading, he had finally agreed to testing. He told me the results were fine, that it was me, that I was the broken one. He let me carry that grief, that guilt, that worthlessness. For a year, Jessica was a paralegal. She knew the law. She also knew how to bend it. "I need the real results from Northwood," I told her. "That's protected," she said. "But you're his wife. Maybe there's a way." There was. Consent forms, old passwords, quiet calls. 2 weeks later, the truth arrived in my inbox. A PDF file. I opened it with trembling hands. Azoospermia. Sterile. Mark couldn't have children. He knew. He always knew. He had lied to me, gaslit me, punished me. But there was more. I looked at our finances. That clinic visit he claimed cost thousands. Our joint account said otherwise. No clinic charges, but a $20,000 cash withdrawal? That existed. I hired a private investigator. I told him I didn't care about the affair. I needed the money trail. 2 weeks later, he returned with more than receipts. He brought revelations. Mark had a shell account. He had been transferring money to Lauren. Rent, car payments, designer clothes, a luxury lifestyle she flaunted while pretending to be poor. But the final nail? A $200,000 payment from Mark's company account to a title company, a house, bought with embezzled funds, in my mother's name. Not a betrayal, a conspiracy. I had the proof, I had the timing, and I had the stage. Back at the restaurant, I stood. I held up my wine glass again. And to the truth, I said. Mark frowned. Lauren's smile faltered. I reached into my purse, pulled out a folded document, slid it across the table. What is this? Mark asked. Your fertility results, I said. The silence broke like glass. Lauren stared at him, confused, then terrified. You can't, he stammered. The biggest lie. I said, my voice steady. Was not you cheating. It was you pretending to be a father. Lauren looked at her stomach, then at him, then at me. The horror began to bloom. Then I turned to my mother. And, Mom, that house. Lovely choice. Shame it was paid for with stolen money. Mark's company will want it back. Chaos. Mark lunged, screaming. Security dragged him away, thrashing like a child denied a toy. My mother collapsed in sobs. Lauren went catatonic. Jessica appeared at my side, her arm firm around my shoulders. Lauren reached for me. Emily, please. I pulled away. Call Ryan, I said coldly. He deserves to know he's going to be a dad. Then I walked out, and I didn't look back. The morning sun hit my balcony like a soft invitation. The lake below shimmered and danced with ripples, and just beyond the railing, the orchid I rescued weeks ago stood with its first blooming bud, delicate but strong. I had thought I was the broken one, the woman who couldn't grow, but I wasn't broken. I was just planted in the wrong garden. It had been 6 months since the restaurant, 6 months since the implosion and rebirth, since I handed the truth to the people who had buried me in lies and watched them choke on it. The aftermath had been legal, slow, and satisfying. Divorce lawyers, forensic accountant, as statement after statement, piece by piece. Everything Mark thought he could bury surfaced. Jessica stayed by my side every step of the way. When Mark's company got wind of the embezzlement, they pulled the rug from under him with ruthless precision. What began as a quiet investigation erupted into a scandal. Within 3 months he was indicted. 2 months after that he was sentenced to 5 years. The courtroom had been packed, but I never went. I didn't need to see it. I had already closed that chapter. Lauren had disappeared from social media in town. Last I heard, she went to live with an aunt in Denver, her baby born in shame and silence. The golden child tarnished. My mother sold the house quietly, tried to disappear into some coastal town where no one knew her name. No one knew the truth that she chose her daughter's husband over her daughter, but I moved into a small apartment above a pottery studio. One Jessica had insisted I visit. The day after my settlement check cleared. You need to touch something real, she said. Do something that gets your hands dirty and your mind clean. And she was right. At the studio, I found peace I never expected. My hands sculpted forms that had no past, no betrayal, only purpose and shape and patience. Sometimes art was therapy. Sometimes it was rebellion. It was a Tuesday when the news alert hit my phone. I wiped clay off my hands and stared at the screen. Former finance executive Mark Peterson sentenced to 5 years for embezzlement. The image was grainy. Mark in cuffs being led into a courthouse, his face pale, his mouth tight. The comments were ruthless. Strangers dissecting his arrogance, his fall, his hypocrisy. I felt nothing. Not joy, not triumph. Only quiet, like a deep exhale after years of holding your breath. Jessica looked over my shoulder at the screen, then at me. Okay, he nodded. Better than okay. Went back to spinning the wheels in silence. The only sound, the soft hum of clay taking shape, of hands refusing to let go of the past and choosing instead to form something new. One evening, I received a letter with no return address. The handwriting was shaky. Dear Amelie, no, I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to say this. I didn't see it then, how wrong it was what I did, what we did. Mark said things I wanted to believe about you, about us, about what we were owed. I thought I was stealing happiness. I was stealing poison. I'm sorry. I hope someday you grow everything they said you couldn't. I hope your garden blooms. Lauren folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, not to forget, but to remember exactly what I had survived. These seasons turned. The orchid bloomed again, each petal a quiet affirmation, and I realized healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about planting something new and watching it grow. The story that began with betrayal ended with creation. Not vengeance, not bitterness, just new beginnings. And as I sat on my balcony, tea in hand, watching the light bend over the lake, I finally smiled, not for the story that was, but for the one I was still writing. Moral and life lesson: never underestimate the quiet strength of a wounded heart. Betrayal may shatter trust, but it also uncovers hidden truths and awakens the power to rebuild. In the face of injustice, perseverance, self-respect, and courage can turn pain into purpose. Love rooted in lies cannot endure, but the love you build within yourself becomes unbreakable.